Hej allihopa och välkommen till Pengaflödet-podcasten. Mitt namn är Emily.
Och mitt namn är Anna.
Vi håller på med fastighetsinvesteringar i Storbritannien. Och den här podden kommer handla om just detta och vi kommer varje vecka ta upp relevanta ämnen och intervjua personer som vi finner inspirerande.
Hej och välkomna till Pengaflödet-podcasten. Idag har vi Dan Buchan. Hi Dan.
Hi, hey.
He can speak some Swedish.
I was trying to, mate. I just didn't quite manage to get it in there.
Have you traveled to Sweden or Scandinavia before?
No, I travelled around India with a friend from Finland. That's as close as I've got to the Nordic countries. So yeah, I'd love to go there. I know it's a beautiful country. 8 million or so people. Really want to go and see all of the sites, especially visit Stockholm as well. So that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely. People like Scandinavia who come and travel. So you've been very busy lately.
Yeah, so I think if you want me to, do you want me just to introduce a bit about myself, what we do and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Cool. So obviously, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Dan Buchan. I had the pleasure of meeting Nana and Emma with, it must have been about a year ago now, mate.
Yeah.
Yourself and Emily. And that was, I was providing some education to the guys and they hopefully liked what they heard. So that's good. And so my company is called Aspire Property Group, and I essentially own a number of businesses that source and provide properties. So we've been doing it for about 6 years, nationwide, across England and Wales. Not so much Scotland and Northern Ireland because those are very different markets, but yeah, across the bulk of the UK, and we've sold about £50 million worth of property in that time. So I think we're the second or third biggest sort of company that does this sort of thing, and I'd like to think the one that provides the number one in terms of the most value. So yeah, hopefully a lot we can share and learn from yourselves as well, and that's what we've been up to, mate.
Yeah. That's very, very interesting. I think this episode will be great for the listeners. So just let's jump right into it. So tell me about your property journey then.
Okay, cool. So like many people, and maybe you guys listening have had this sort of situation, you start in property with, a lot of enthusiasm, but not really knowing what to do. And for me, it was very much like that. So I'm 28 years old now, but if you were with me when I was 19, you'd have seen a teenager who had always wanted to make money. I'd wanted to. I was always taught to go to school, go to university, get a good job, and that job in my head was going to be in finance because that was the one that paid the most. To be working in the city, and that was the sort of lifestyle I was looking at. And when I was about 16, 17, I got my first job, maybe like many of you guys have. And that was in a retail place. So I spent, went to school, came back, did this job. And it was building up money. And that's good. But I was like, I need more. And so I got an additional job. I got a second job as a mystery shopper, doing going into supermarkets and basically telling them off privately when they were doing something wrong. So that was good fun. But again, even though it was more money, it was kind of like holding on to sand. Like it just slipped through your fingers because I was spending it. I had no money education. I had heard property over here was something great to do, but hadn't started doing that just yet. So I then had the opportunity to take a year out, to take a gap year. So I decided to do that, and I thought I'm going to go for it. Get another full-time job. So this was, at this point I had a retail job during the day, a mystery shopper job during the evening, and then started a night job in a warehouse. And I was like, okay, right, literally sending all the hours God sends, to be able to try and work. And it was just never making enough money. So I knew I needed to do something different. I had to rewire my thinking. And I then went to, started looking in the finance market and managed to make a bit of money doing that. So myself and my business partner, Jamie York, we made a couple of $100,000 doing finance. Spread betting and essentially betting on the direction of markets. And this was in about 2008-9. So it was very volatile at that time. And we made money doing that, but it was so inconsistent. And at the time, Nana, I thought I was a genius, but it was just very much luck. And obviously, what do you think happens between 19-year-olds when they have that sort of money?
You spend it.
Pretty much. So, you know, so I went traveling for a year. As I said, I went to places like India, to Thailand, to Los Angeles, all around the world. I went to university, but I started spending the money on stuff that, you know, like even though I live within walking distance to the uni, I'd get a taxi to the uni. You know, it was silly stuff, mate. Yeah, I knew property was good, and I was like, the money was starting to run out, and I started to get a bit more worried because I was like, I can't replace this money. You know, I need something consistent. And I'd watched a show in the UK called Homes Under the Hammer, which is a very popular daytime TV show where people buy properties, do them up and sell them, and they make it look much more simple than the reality. So I did that. I watched that and thought, you know, the people on here, I can do better than them. You know, I'm smarter than them, whatever it was. Again, a bit of arrogance maybe. But we took the last money we had and bought a £21,800 house. So this house was in a place called Burnley, which is in Lancashire in the north of England. And it's, if you could imagine the worst area to buy in, it was like that. You know how they say buy the best house, the worst house in the best street? We bought the worst house in the worst street. But, you know, so I think it must have been about 20, nearly 21 at that time, went into the estate agents, and they don't take you seriously to start with, you know, for various different reasons. Maybe because it's a language barrier. Maybe in our case, it was because we were young. But we eventually managed to see some houses and open the door to number 36 Burdett Street. And you could just smell the profit. You know, you could see the house had been last decorated in the 50s. You know, the toilet had been used more than been cleaned. It was it was a bit of a hole, mate. So but we were filled with enthusiasm. We thought the plan was, and just to share those you know, this initial, because I want to share the mistakes first, initial numbers with you. It was 21,800 purchase. We thought we were going to do it up for about 8-9 grand and sell it, or maybe refinance it, whatever, for 40. So that was the plan. But I was based in a university at York at the time, which is about 100 miles away. My business partner was based in London, which was about 200 or so miles away from the property. And you can imagine 2 young people trying to do up this house isn't going to go that quickly. And it didn't. So after a bit of time, we thought, you know, let's leverage and outsource, because we started to learn, started to read a few books by this point. So we got the next door neighbour to do some of the works, Nana. And
wow.
So we thought, brilliant, you know, he's a handyman already, get the delivery sent to his house. And we were smart. We didn't want to pay all the money up front, you know, for the work. So we thought, okay, let's give him, we'll pay for the materials, then we'll pay him for the labour afterwards. So we bought a kitchen, it got delivered. We went away, and a few weeks later, we excitedly drove back up to this property, this 21 grand house in number 36. And I remember opening the door, and nothing had changed. It was the complete same, and we were fuming. You know, it was. I remember going next door. You know, when you're angry, like you've got red, so you can't quite think rationally. It was like that, and we were knocking on his window. And no answer at all. But you know when someone's in, and we could tell that there was someone in the house because the blinds were moving and stuff like that. So we peeked our head up against the window, and he installed our kitchen in his house. So we basically it was a good 4 grand kitchen. You know, it was like half the bloody refurb budget. He installed it nicely as well. It was just in the wrong bloody house, mate. And we were gutted at that, because this isn't the sort of area where you could like ring the police and ask for your kitchen back, you know. You couldn't exactly do that. So we had absolutely no chance, and that really deflated us for a bit. And maybe you faced that challenge in your property journey as well, you know, where you have those times where you deflated. But this was in 2012, 2013 now. So obviously that's 7 years ago now. But I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I had a chance encounter. So at university, I was just mentioning about property with a few people, and someone said, you need to speak to this guy called Alex. I thought, okay, cool, I'll do that, see what he's up to. Because he was said to be, he was doing the same degree as me. I'd studied politics, philosophy and economics at the University of York. So he was doing that, but he was a year older and already a property millionaire. He was a couple of years older, actually. He was one academic year ahead. And I was like, right, okay, how did he do that? And maybe that chance encounter is a bit like, you know, maybe this one listening to a podcast or something like that, where I could see what he was doing was right. I could see it worked. And so I said, who educated you? So I went to a company that we both know called Progressive, who had educated him. And we got ourselves trained up as well. Now, that was 2013, 2014, but that was a long time ago now. And the initial education's the spark, but it's, you know, to build a real raging fire of a business is not just the education. Obviously, we've had a lot of hard knocks over the last 7 years. And I think what's quite fun to see is our office has gone from us working in our bedrooms, you know, quite literally in a rent to HMO bedroom, you know, in a rent to rent, to a small office, to a medium-sized one, getting your first member of staff. And now I'm sat here with space for about 20 people around me. You know, we've just, like, and we're growing as well. So even now, and for the listeners out there, we are, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the C word, Nana, being in the coronavirus situation.
You're allowed.
Yeah, the old COVID. But we're still hiring because we're growing, you know, we're busy. And so that's expanded, obviously. So that's been our property journey. I own and control about 30 properties now, but I'm more interested in packaging and trading. So I do a strategy called property trading, which is where a lot of deals we package on to investors, both in the UK and abroad, but also buying them ourselves, doing them up and either refinancing them or selling them. Sometimes they're quick flips, sometimes, you know, so like I'd like to say advanced, you know, in terms of the strategy. So yeah, so that's what I'm up to at the minute, mate. And I must be honest, at the minute it's going pretty well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Interesting journey though. The house was so funny. And Emily has joined in us now as well.
Oh, nice to see you, Emily. See you again.
You too, Dan. I love that story about the kitchen. I remember you said that when we were in Petersburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, it's a story now from 7 years ago, but I think people love to hear the mistakes. You know, because it's all very easy to say, look, it's going well now, you've got 30 houses, etc., etc. But what people like, I think, hearing what it was like way back when. So yeah, it's a pleasure to share that, of course.
Yeah. So tell me your portfolio. Not every deal of the 40 houses you're controlling, owning, but basically, are they HMOs, are they commercial to conversions, are they buy to lets?
I think it's best doing this in the form of sort of talking through the properties I've had and why we bought them, because too often people say their portfolio as numbers, but you know, let's say someone could own 100 houses or someone could own 10 houses, but if that 100 houses is, you know, not profitable, 80% of them are occupied and 20% void, it's kind of like it's giving the headline figures without the truth. And I want to make sure we share the truth. So from when we started, we needed cash flow. So in about 2014, 2015, I'll try and do it as a timeline so you can build up the picture. We knew we needed rent-to-rent properties because we didn't have the money or indeed the mortgageability, which may be a challenge for some of the listeners just now, to buy properties. So we knew, but we wanted the cash flow. So we got in, built up 14 rent-to-rents. And Jamie and I moved to a city called Leeds. So Leeds in West Yorkshire. We basically moved away from home, mate. Like, we didn't want to live near parents who didn't share that same attitude. And so we wanted to live at least an hour away from there. And honestly, it was a case of picking almost a dart. You know, when you throw a dart at the map, it was a bit random that we chose Leeds, but it's turned out to be extraordinary well. Yes. So we had 14 rent-to-rents in there, and that served our purpose of generating cash flow. It was 70 tenants. All of them were ex-student lets, where the student market had dipped because these tower blocks were going up. So maybe you've seen this in different cities. I think there is university cities in Sweden as well, but obviously in the UK it's quite prominent because people come all over the world to here. Tower blocks of top level student accommodation, and that hits the HMOs that are existing. So there's a lot of room for that. So we'd agreed guaranteed rent with the landlords for maybe about $700-800 a month, and then that would give us 5 rooms, which we'd rent out for $400 a month. And there's about £400-500 of bills there. So the profit on each one was about $600 a month when it was full, or $200 a month when there was a room empty. So we did that, and that generated the cash flow. And then as we got a bit older, we started to be able to buy properties. So we started buying a few in County Durham and did a joint venture, but the joint venture terms were very much weighted in the favour of the investor in that one. So we had a few properties, but we didn't really cash flow from them. So it was just like almost parking assets. And you try things and fail. You want to build up your wealth and build up your growth, So we then supplemented that on top with a few lease option deals as well. So I don't know if your listeners, just to gauge are they familiar with lease options, or is it something new?
No, you can. Some are, some I ain't. So you can, of course, explain it, because you teach it.
Yeah, of course. So in a line, a lease option is best divided into the 2 words. So a lease is obviously a long-term let or control of a property, and the option is the right but not the obligation to buy it. So a lease option, let's say I was doing one with you, Nana, is I would agree to buy your property at some point in the future, maybe in 5, maybe 10 years time, for an agreed price. And I have the right to purchase it, but you have the obligation to sell it to me if I choose to do so. And in that time, I also take control of the property and pay your mortgage. So we just sold a lease option portfolio to, we actually sold it several times over, but one of the investors was based in Australia, chap who was interested in this. So, we sell these to nationwide buyers because sometimes they don't have the ability to get the mortgage. I do maintain it's best to own properties where you can, but lease options are a good strategy. But, as we were going through 24, 25, 26 years old, the rent to rents and those creative strategies is what we had to do. So now we have an own and control about 30 properties. And also the reason it changes a bit is because we do flips as well. So I've got, is it 2 flips at the minute? Maybe 3. Yeah, two on the market, and one we bought about this halfway through refurb that is being sold. And then the most recent one we sold was 2 weeks ago. So
in this time of age, during the COVID,
it's flips. Yeah, it's something that we're having to make sure we're cautious of. So it's really good question that, actually, Nana, because you've got to be aware of your goals and of what's going on in the wider market. So last year we did about 10 flips, where we actually just bought the property and sold it. This year we had one going through, and the sale one we agreed before coronavirus. Unfortunately, because it's a homeowner and we'd done the property up nice and we dressed it nicely, the homeowner was really pushing to buy it. So it took a few months longer, but it still went through. At the minute, we're not going to be buying any more flips apart from, and this is going to be interesting, properties that we can buy and then sell straight away at auction. So properties where you can, we'll get it off market cheap and then sell it straight away in an auction. Because I know it sounds weird. There's more investors now than there is generally, because people are taking money out of other stuff. Stocks and shares are certainly volatile. Currencies are taking a hit. Bank rates are low. So people want to put money into property. And far from, whilst vendors may be struggling, there's more buyers as well. So, so we're finding that putting something in auction will, as a professional investor, we sell stuff in auction, not really buy it in the auction so much. You can get good deals in auction, obviously, but just don't overpay. But we're selling to those who get excited, who haven't bought before and they put their hand up. And so that's the sort of flips we're doing just now. The portfolio is growing, mate. We're doing more buy, refurb, refinance for ourselves, doing more, acquiring more for us and indeed our investors as well.
Yeah, I'm interested of the County Durham, because when we started, me and Emily, we were looking at that area, but it seems so hard to understand the Northeast. How could you understand the Northeast? Because you're not based there.
No, so part of this comes from having sold properties all over the UK. So I think there's only about 5 or 6 counties in England where we haven't sold a house, but it gives a very good overview. So the best way to describe it is that there's a trade-off between capital growth and yield. So in the Northeast, you'd expect there to be high yields, low purchase prices and relatively high rents, 8-9% yields, that sort of thing. But the capital growth isn't going to be there. And the polar opposite to that is in the middle of London, where you've got properties that are extraordinarily expensive, but the rental income they throw off isn't quite as much. So to give an example, you might have in a given area, a 30 grand house might rent for £300 a month. You might agree with that. And it's obviously at the bottom end of the spectrum. You probably wouldn't want to buy that for other reasons anyway, but just to use it as an example, that's a 12% yield. A property that's in the middle of London might be 3 million, let's say. It's 100 times more expensive. But do you think the rent's going to be 100 times higher?
No.
No. And so you'd be lucky if it's 10 times higher, so maybe 20 times higher. So 3 to 6 grand a month coming in. So the yield's obviously not as high. County Durham as a whole area is very much a yield area. So like you're going to get cash flow from the rent, but you're not going to get that capital growth over time.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys found as well?
Yeah, that's what we found as well. There's no capital growth in the Northeast, it seems.
It doesn't mean it's a bad area, by the way. It depends what you want to achieve. So, if I'm an investor, I'm sat there thinking, is it cash flow now I want, or do I want to build a genuine legacy for my family and kids and stuff like that? Because people buy property, those expensive properties in the middle of London, you always hear in the news over here in the UK of Russian and Chinese buyers paying, £1 million, £2 million for houses. But their goals are very different. They just want to park money. So that is a good investment for them. For us who maybe just want, say for someone who's starting out to replace their income from their job, buying properties in County Durham to generate the cash flow, and then they've got the time to spend managing that portfolio and stuff, is a good idea. So neither of them are wrong. They can both be good investments. Where we focus is in Leeds, which is or West Yorkshire, I should say, which is kind of in the middle of the two. So we get some cash flow coming in, but also propensity for capital growth as well. So that's the area we like for sure.
So I came up with a question right out of the blue. Could you explain for the listeners what's the difference between a sourcer and a property trading or property trader?
Great stuff. Great question. So property sourcing is, I guess, a part of property trading. So a person who trades properties, the way I like to describe it is that your strategy isn't specifically rent to rent or lease options or etc. You do need to know what you want overall, what your core focus is, but your strategy is marketing. You want to get in as many deals as you can, as many opportunities as you can, and then you might choose to package some of those on. You might choose to source some of those on. You might choose to buy it with an investor and sell it. You might choose to buy it and keep it, depending on what your goals are. And we do each of those. So some of the properties we keep because we want to build our portfolio. Some of them we sell to our investors because they want to build their portfolio. Some of them we package on, source on as well. So, and there's, just to expand on the question then, there's a difference between sourcing and packaging as well, if it's all right to explain, I guess, the nuance, the difference. Because property sourcing is essentially finding a property and then you sell it to someone. So I've got two main brands, if you like. One of them is called We Sell BMV, We Sell Below Market Value. And we have properties all over the UK, generally about 50 genuine opportunities each month. We get in a lot more, but obviously we wouldn't try and sell them because they're not there. So 50 a month, and they're all over the UK, but they're sourced. So for instance, we find the properties generally off market, generally with a level of discount. But then and we do the case progression and the case management. Once the keys are in the investor's hand, it's up to them, and that's what I consider sourcing to be. And then deal packaging, on the other hand, is the whole hands-free package. which is, if it's all right, I've got a link for your listeners to explore a bit more about that, to offer them a consultation on that front as well. So packaging is where we'd find the property, mostly off market, but sometimes not. I know it sounds weird, but it depends on the numbers. We would then do the case progression, do the refurb for the property, and our job's not finished until that you've got rental income coming in your bank. So that's the difference between the two, in my view, anyway.
That was a great explanation, and because here in Sweden, you think everything is the same, they just say sourcer, and now you have really categorized it.
Oh, mate, yeah, you then also got to divide between the ones that know what they're doing and the ones that don't as well. So, yeah.
So you can say what you provide is a real passive income for investors.
It is for those that want it, yes. And with everything we do, it's the aim is to provide access to financial freedom through property investment, to allow people to grow their wealth through property investment. So we work with investors who just lend us money, but I appreciate for most people that's not their goal. They want to own the asset. So we have a service that does the whole hands-free thing in West Yorkshire, in an area we know is, or as much as possible know, is growing over time. I happen to love the place I live as well. And we do what we say we're doing as well. So we're also buying in the same areas that we're packaging, which is great. I think anyone that maybe, some people might not have the funds to, but you should certainly have the desire to. You shouldn't. I don't like people selling stuff that they wouldn't recommend their mother buys. So that's that's I guess what we package and how we deal with that.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite strategy of all of these? It's hard to say a favorite. I enjoy buying properties. Like I get a buzz out of doing the going right. That's another one. And to be honest, what I get a buzz out of is adding to my net wealth spreadsheet. And whether that's in equity or in cash is cool, So like, for instance, we are trying to agree. I went to view a property yesterday. It's going to be a property we buy, refurb and refinance. We'll buy it in cash, do it up and then refinance it. And it'll probably be about 15 grand of added equity, and it's like, right, cool, there's 15 grand added to the wealth there. And that's good fun. So I enjoy that, but I must admit, I just enjoy property in general, mate. It's good fun. Okay. And what do you least enjoy in property?
So I'll tell you the bit that I personally find the hardest, but fortunately I have a business partner who is exceptional at it. So obviously in a business you've got different personalities, and maybe with yourself, Nana and Emily, you've got different things that you enjoy doing in your property business. So some people love the analytics, the numbers, the spreadsheets, and that's more me, and others love the negotiation, the dealing with the people, the actually getting the deal done. And so I believe you have to have a competency in all of them. You have to be able to do them, and to a high level if you want to hold yourself to a high account, but you're always going to be naturally drawn towards one or the other. To get a little bit geeky on you, if it's all right, it's a bit like in economics where you have differences, like there's a benefit of one country producing one good and another country producing another good. It's a bit like that. There's a trade-off there. So for me, trying to get good at negotiation where I just want to buy the property, like I just want to go, this is how much we can actually pay for it, yes or no. Can you? And whereas that's not the right way to do that in the slightest. And I know that, so I'm aware of that. And I either measure myself when I do it, or Jamie does it for us, and or the team do it now, obviously. So so that's, I guess, the bit that I don't like the most. But that's a personal thing, and being aware of that and having that counterbalance brings, 1 + 1 = more than 2 then.
Yeah, but that's good that you both of you are aware of who's good on what.
Yeah. And
that's basically you and me as well. I know you're much better with the numbers. That's it.
Pretty much everything.
Everything.
But that's true. Yeah.
So now this is the question me and Emily have waited for to get an answer of.
Yeah, and I think it's a good question for all of the listeners too, because since here everybody says you need to know your area, so that's why this question is a great one.
Yeah. How can you source the UK?
The whole of UK.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's two. I'm going to take this high level and then go deep into it. So there's two ways you can source properties. You can either get the deal first or get the investor first. And I guess the model there, it comes into being nationwide or area specific. So if you're doing it nationwide, it's much harder. And if I was starting again, I wouldn't have started doing this way. But Jamie and I had the opportunity to purchase our one of the brands, We Sell BMV, back in 2014, which was we sell below market value. And the benefit of that is it had investors coming to us all the time. You know, people from Googling it and finding that's the so we just had constant investors from different places. So we kind of had to source nationwide to facilitate that. And the way to do that is online. You're never going to get obviously around all these areas. And it's taken us years to build up knowledge in each place. But you have to leverage these stuff online. So a large portion of our deals come from Facebook campaigns, Facebook ad campaigns across various different regions. We also teach a lot of sources in different areas. So our latest program is called the Elite Property Trader Academy. And we've got people, it's quite funny actually. We've got people all the way from Jersey in the Channel Islands, all the way up to Edinburgh and everywhere in between, you know, and having that network brings you a few more opportunities in each area, plus the ones directly from Facebook ads, plus the ones from recommendations from getting a good job. And you start to build up a consistent pipeline of people that want to sell properties through you and that sort of thing. So that's how I guess we source nationwide. I know it sounds weird. It's not something I'd recommend people doing. You want to, and it's much easier to focus on an area. Because I can tell you a lot about London, but I would say there's not many people in the world that know more about the property market in Leeds. And I'm saying that with a straight face and trying to be, what's the word? I'll use Donald Trump words, not braggadocious in saying that, you know. But I think that shows confidence, and that's not possible for the whole UK. That's just possible for certain regions. So it's certainly better to do it in an area. But if you want to source, and indeed if you're abroad, by the way, and you want to do your own property deals, learning how to do Facebook ads is pretty fundamental, I'd say, because you're not going to get a much better way of doing it than using online methods to get vendors on the phone. And almost all the deals we do, we close over the phone.
Okay. So how do you know which streets are good or bad while you're sourcing, while you're looking nationwide?
So the number one tool I'd use for that is a tool called streetcheck.co.uk. So StreetCheck gives you all of the socio-demographic information about an area. So it takes it from the census, from the Office of National Statistics, from all these government and official and, you know, statistical bodies, and amalgamates it into an easy to digest bit of information for each postcode. So just looking at the street check, you can see if an area's all council owned or homeowner or, you know, that sort of thing. And so I know across the UK, 61% of the houses are owner occupier. About 19% are private landlord, and the remaining 18 or 20% are social housing, you know, owned by either councils or other housing associations. And obviously a desirable area would have more owner occupiers in because people want to live there and own there. Let's say a less desirable area might be more council owned. So you instantly there, you've got a gauge, and there's a few different metrics, you know, the unemployment metric, the socio-demographic metric that help give you that gauge of where the street's at. Yeah. So
would you recommend investors overseas, like here in Sweden, when they get a deal from a sourcer, like you said, you need to work with people that know what they're doing. Do you recommend the investor to do their own due diligence through StreetCheck to see what kind of area it is?
Depending on how well you know the source or how much you work with them, obviously you're buying the property and it's always your responsibility to do some level of check on that. I'd encourage people to do so because you want to be buying a good deal, obviously. But getting used to Street Check is will help with that. A lot of sources indeed won't know it because obviously it's some due diligence to do on a sourcer is that asking them who it is that's like either train them or what experience they have, because I don't want to sit here and say that people that are new aren't any good, because sometimes they're the ones that give you the most attention to detail and give you the most value because they're eager to please and can do it. If you ever find someone saying that they've done it for years and they've sourced XYZ number of deals, a good way of gauging whether they're actually telling the truth is whether they charge VAT or not. Because in the UK, that threshold is 86 grand. If they're not doing 86 grand of deals and they're also making big claims, then that's something to look at.
Yeah.
That was a really good golden nugget.
Yeah, good way.
With the VAT.
Good way to see it. Really
so
good.
Tell us, how do you use Facebook ads in your business? Because we have noticed that you guys have revolutionized this Facebook ads.
It's funny actually, because our Elite Property Trading Academy, tomorrow's session is all about Facebook ads, and we're doing it's a 12-week program where we basically put in about 16 days worth of content into those 12 weeks, all online. So Jamie's doing the Facebook ad one tomorrow, and it's a simple formula. It works the same across all businesses. You've got your lead magnet. You're something that's going to attract vendors to you. So for instance, sell your house fast. It used to be a lot more like that. People just put sell your house fast. Nowadays, it's much more personal. So we'd run it from Jamie's personal page and say things like, I'm just looking for a few houses in this area, because it's much more relatable, and you don't come across like a big buying company. You come across like a person who genuinely just wants to buy one or two investments in the area for either yourself or someone you know. So that's I guess the top tip for how we use it. And then obviously to do it as a business, you need to then integrate it into other systems and stuff as well. But for an individual, you'll get on plenty of leads for that if you're looking to buy a few houses.
Yeah. Good answer.
Yeah.
And what I'm aware of, you use VAs, right, in your business?
We do use some, yeah. So we've got 2 virtual assistants who are based in the Philippines. So there's 3 ways of getting people to do tasks, I guess. You can either hire someone, but that obviously has an overhead. The upside is direct control. The downside's the cost and the overhead. You've then got the outsourcing to a separate company. The issue there is, 1, it still costs a lot, and 2, to be honest, I found that you have little control over it. So for instance, we tried hiring a company to do some social media work for us, but their style was just like, we didn't have the control over it, So now we're hiring an in-house videographer to film me and Jamie. That'd be fun. Yeah. And then some tasks, particularly admin tasks, or I'll be honest, tasks that are repetitive. People in the Philippines, so we use a site called onlinejobs.ph to find the people. Their culture is very diligent. They enjoy doing work, and so Rose is a virtual assistant who's been with us the longest. Every single morning before any of us start work, she's on Skype checking in, and she says, hey, and she'll even message us saying, hey, just taking a break, even when no one responds. It's nuts. But she does we get a property deal in, she then analyzes it and does the mail out. So she does the comparables, because the core information, does the mail out. Now, obviously, if we're going to buy it, or indeed we're packaging it to one of our hands-free clients, Jamie or I then take a personal look at the property as well, obviously. However, with such a large volume, that's how we're able to get through it.
So you build up a system, everything, to just look at the videos and etc. So anyone can implement it, right? Let's say if she wants to quit.
If you get a new VA, you have a system to teach them.
With property, there's always an element of it takes some time for training, for sure.
Yeah.
But she's been with us for 2 years. I always encourage you don't want to pay like you can get virtual assistants for $2 an hour, or you get them for $6 an hour. I wouldn't go for the $2 an hour for the same reason you wouldn't buy the cheapest bottle of wine. It's you want them to be good at their job and enjoy it and continue working for you. So that's how we get them to work continuously.
Yeah. Good answer.
Yeah, and good way of using your VA to leverage.
They're able to do plenty of other tasks as well. So like English is their first language, not their first language, but they've learned it, through most of their lives. The only thing I wouldn't get them to do is on the phone, because it's quite obvious that they're not based in the UK, because it's Americanized, the English they use. However, anything aside from that, whether it's research tasks, some basic social media tasks, admin things, you can get virtual assistants to do.
Yeah, that's smart. So how can we as overseas investors do rent-to-rent and other lease option deals? Because we get that question a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people ask about rent-to-rent from here, and also what they should think about when doing lease options, because if we get a lease option, it's through a sourcer, of course. So what due diligence do they need on a lease option, because it's very regulated, right, with the contracts and stuff.
Okay, cool. So there's two different answers, because those are both different strategies, and I'd rather give the honest answer than the easy answer for rent to rent. Is that if you're trying to do it remotely, the management of the property, the management company, eats up most of the profit. So I personally, and again, I'd rather be honest, I wouldn't look to do rent to rent from abroad when you have to hire a management company, unless you're able to maybe do a joint venture with a management company. Maybe you fund a deal and someone else looks after it for you, because it takes all the profit away. You're on somewhat tight margins as it is. Plus, with rent to SA as well, and this is true of rent to HMO too, you've got so much trust in the management company. They're so fundamentally important to what you're doing. So you need to make sure that's you need a real good management company you can trust. Lease options is kind of the other way around, as in it's the initial part that's the hard part. So you need to find a sourcer that really understands them. Or if you want to do them yourself, you have to get a good understanding yourself, because lease options isn't something that we when we're talking about them here, maybe, many investors are wanting to learn more about them, but people on the street never heard of them in their life, and you don't use the word lease option. And so you need to be able to get to the level where you can explain it to someone else if you want to tie that deal up yourself. So that does involve further education. It's not a strategy, as you said, Emily, that you can just sort of pick up, because there's lots of things to make sure you get right in the contract. And people do source them as well. And often it's overseas investors that buy them. I'd probably encourage you to make more money doing what you're doing and just use a sourcer to do the lease option.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Very good answer.
Yeah, very good answer. Because we get a lot of questions about that. How they should, maybe you can explain it, how they should set it up with the payments, with the vendor who's selling the or leasing out the property.
Okay, cool. So there's, in every lease option agreement, and obviously we're going deep into this, but I don't mind that, as cool. There's 3 different contracts, mostly. There's a few other bits to add on as well. You've got the option agreement, which is the right but not the obligation to buy it. You've got the management agreement, which gives you the right to control property for a number of years. And then lastly, you've got the power of attorney, which gives you the ability to purchase the property. There's a few nuances in the ways you can do that. For instance, you can get a contract and transfer signed but not delivered to so that you're ready to buy the property as and when you need to. But those 3 documents, the lease agreement, the management agreement, and the power of attorney together form a lease option. Something to not forget is you also need to put a restriction on the property, because obviously otherwise you don't want the person to sell it without you knowing. You can't have that. People often forget to include that in that list. And the payments you set up by standing order directly to the bank of the mortgagee, of the mortgage company. In the UK, you can only do it by standing order, not by direct debit. So whenever there's a rate change, which there's been a lot of recently, we've had to change the payments of the lease options, which is a bit manually, which is a bit annoying, but
Yeah. So it's a lot to think about when doing a lease option deal, and that's why you said you should get education on it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you need to do one to actually then see how it works as well. It's something to. This is why I like property trading, because you have all these tools in your arsenal. So we teach you how, and then your job becomes fixing problems for vendors. Because most of the sellers you speak to, let's say you guys were looking at County Durham or you were looking at West Yorkshire, you speak to people who are in different situations, and for some of them the lease option is not right for them. So there's no point trying to shove them into that strategy. You want to see what works for you and them. So it might be a case of agreeing a lower price. It might be a case of renting the property off them as a rent to rent, something like this. So
what's your take on investors owning different property in different regions in UK? Because some say you need to own the property 2 hours from your investing area, or you know what I mean? Or do you just, it doesn't matter if this deal stacks and
You obviously, being based in Sweden and investing in the UK, you're going to have properties remotely, and it can be done. What's key is the letting agent who's in charge of managing them for you. And weirdly, it's the individual in the letting agent, not the actual company itself, generally, that's important. Because sometimes, you'll have a letting agent and that's good, and then she or he will leave, and then, it all goes to rubbish. So you want to have letting agents are one of the key contacts if you are doing that. What to maybe not do is to dot them all around the place. So, for instance, our investors, we've got a client in Hong Kong who's bought about 6 properties in West Yorkshire now through our hands-free service, and they're all managed by the same letting agent and in one area. He's not buying one in Leeds and one in Plymouth, in the southwest. It's doing it in the similar sort of area. So that makes a lot of sense. When you get to about 10, it's also worth mentioning you should split them between 2 letting agents. Because if your one letting agent goes down, I don't know what that means, but it's still something. You've not got your whole portfolio where you've got to sort out that mess. That's
that's smart. Good tips. So what should people think about when investing during COVID?
Oh well, honestly the challenge I think is mortgages. So we've been really on the pulse with this. So we had about 30 different properties going through just before coronavirus hit. And a lot of those have gone on pause because the lenders have gone on pause, particularly the HMOs. So we knew that most people have a mortgage broker in their power team. We have about 3 or 4 that we use, and they're good at different things. So we'd go to Graham if it was a case of we want to get this through quickly with a lot of attention, but we'd go to Ruth if we wanted to know and have our fingers on the pulse with what the lenders are doing today. And that's what we needed in this situation, because daily there were different changes. So the loan to value people are getting is 75%, and in some cases lenders are they can't process the applications quick enough because of the staffing issues, the fact they've all had to work from home. So there's not a problem with liquidity. It's a challenge of almost admin with a lot of lenders. And so they've pulled some of their more attractive loan to value and stuff products, not so much because of their fears, but because they need to be able to facilitate the clientele. So we've got, surveys being booked in for weeks that haven't been able to move ahead, that sort of thing. It's certainly new, certainly a challenge. I don't think that there's the massive crash in the property market that people expect there to be. And the reason I say that is that I don't think I've ever seen as many people as right now trying to buy houses. There's certainly on the vendor side, obviously there's going to be more opportunities, sadly, because of job losses and stuff like this. But it doesn't automatically mean it's going to become a buyer's market, There's also so many more people, not just in the UK, by the way. Investors from Hong Kong are hugely investing in the UK now. investors, obviously your listeners in Sweden are looking to invest in the UK as well. Hopefully in West Yorkshire in Leeds, but it's becoming more common and more sought after.
Okay, so what are you seeing about the done up value? Is it lower or is it the same?
When they do the due diligence or the numbers on a deal, should they go down on the done up value, do you think? Or
property is about doing as many good deals as you can, not about doing one excellent deal. So a lot of people will sit there, maybe go on a course, maybe hear that you can get all your money back out of a deal, and then not do anything for 6 months because that perfect deal didn't come along. Maybe they then added in a contingency for that done up value, that sort of thing, so it was too large. We don't know. No one's got a crystal ball, and I'm not going to try and predict the future. So we can use the past evidence, maybe be a tad more conservative than we normally would. But beyond that, I'd say go for it. Like, as in, now's the perfect time to get in. You make good money when you buy the house. And for our hands-free clients, we concentrate on return on cash employed. So we're probably the only company to do this. We guarantee a minimum return on cash employed. So it means that if someone buys a property through us, we guarantee them a minimum of 8% return on cash employed. But that's because we're confident in our product. And that doesn't involve any refinance, anything like that, by the way. People can do that if they want to, but but we do a refurb on each property to attract the highest tenant, and you probably added value there. But yeah, it's all about building and accumulating wealth there. For our own ones, I think we'll be a bit more conservative, but we're still. I'd rather own the property. The value. I'm not looking to sell it soon. I'm looking to sell it in 10 years. Own it 10, 20, 30 years.
Sometimes when you've sent deals, there's been a property that it's quite new, but the below market is so low because the seller is obviously stressed. When the buyer, let's say when the investor buy the deal and remortgage it, does the expected done up value, the buyer get that done up value when he put on a mortgage on it, or does he get the level below?
So it's always buy, refurb, refinance. Knowing that refinance figure is always, and you have to accept this as a part of the strategy, going to be the unknown. So you're not going to ever know what it is. Sometimes it will come in worse than you expect. Sometimes it will come in better than you expect. And over time, you get better at guessing it or predicting it. You're never going to know exactly. I think I understand your question then is when you're buying a property that's discounted because of the speed of the sale, how do you then show that it's worth more? So having a schedule of works helps for that, as in a schedule of works that you've added value to the property on top to show the surveyor. There's a very small advantage at the minute, which is that the land registry is so slow that it's taking a long time to register the value of properties. And so surveyors can't always even see what it was bought for in some cases. So you ask for the refinance amount. So it's always going to have that level of uncertainty. And sometimes it just depends on what side of bed the valuer gets out of bed on that day. Like as in, you could buy a house that's genuinely worth 100, maybe for 80 if you bought it in cash, because the vendor was, and you bought it in a few days, let's say. You wouldn't then want to try and refinance it the next day for 100, obviously. But, in 6 months' time, the surveyor might come back and be pessimistic. They might come back and say, yeah, that's cool. You don't know. So it's something to factor in as an uncertainty of property. But it's worth adding. What's your goals?
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you the question. I know it's normally the other way around, but what is it? Are you looking to achieve, you and Nana and Emily looking to achieve long-term wealth, or are you looking to achieve?
Yes, that's our goals.
So whether it values up today at the right price, or whether it values up or it doesn't, the price you want it to, is more a cash flow issue than it is a long-term goal and wealth issue. Because you're not planning on selling the property tomorrow. You never, if you genuinely believe and are certain of the value, that if you put it on the market, because it's the market that really knows the price, obviously, the open market, and it would sell for a decent amount of money, then you can be confident in it. It's a shame that the surveyor might not value it at what you want it to, but it's not like, don't let that get in the way of your financial freedom.
Yeah.
That's
good,
true.
really good answer, Dan. Really good. What are your thoughts on the market post-COVID?
Look, I guess
It's like, I know it's
yeah,
I guess
a lot more opportunity. I'm just cautious that so many people have make these wild crystal ball sort of predictions. You know, my 2021 predictions and stuff like that. The thing is, you just don't know, particularly now. I don't think there's not been a pandemic like this in anyone that I know's memory. So no one knows what's going to happen. And I'm grateful for all the technology and stuff, by the way, that allows us to do things like this, and be in touch with all my staff and stuff like that. But it's, I think post-COVID, property is always, it's a safe asset class. So property and gold are like things that attract people when there's uncertainty in the equities market. So I think that people will seek it more and more. I'd encourage you to get in now before the regulation changes, before regulations become tighter. That's the only sort of thing I can imagine happening, is as more and more people want to get into buy-to-let, the only possible outcome of that is eventually there'll be more rules and stuff around it.
Yeah.
Good tip.
So get in now.
Tip. So as an international investors, what tips can you give us that we should think of?
So there's obviously a reason that you're looking to invest in property and in UK property. And I'd suggest that if you're looking for hands-free, I'll produce something at the end, which is I'll give you a link actually. I don't know if to give it now actually. It's bit.ly/aspire hands-free. So obviously, Nana, I'll give you that to write.
I'll put it in the show notes as well, yeah. So don't worry.
So bit.ly/aspire hands-free, all lowercase, all one word. Just to give people a consultation, so my sales manager will have a 20-minute, for those that are serious about investing in the UK and placing money in the UK, that we can have a conversation with them to help them out. But on a wider sense, there's obviously a reason you're doing it. So you either need to decide, right, am I working with someone else, or am I going to try and do this myself? And this kind of depends on the availability of your funds, and to be honest with you, how much you're earning doing whatever it is you're currently doing at the minute. Because some people, most of my investors abroad are in high-paying jobs / they're up to stuff, and then they want to put their excess money into property in the UK. So if you're doing that, just look for the most reliable sources packages you can. And again, don't be put off by people that are new, but make sure you're diligent. Make sure they're members of property redress scheme or the property ombudsman, that sort of thing. And again, if they're larger, make sure they're VAT registered. For those that want to do it themselves, you kind of need to choose an area and get good at it. So we've taught people how to do this across the country. Obviously, we've sold properties in London, several all over the UK, without actually having to physically be there. So it's possible. It's just you need to crack on with it. You need to make use of the online ads. You need to make use of getting on the phone and getting used to it. And you need to invest in yourself to make yourself more attractable to investors and to attract the best opportunities. So I think that's the number one sort of tip I can give is choose an area and also learn from those that are actually doing this stuff as well. Like if you want to learn how to do deals without being there, learn from someone who is genuinely doing deals without being there. Obviously I'm biased in saying we do that, but just as a general piece of advice, learn from those that are doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good tips.
Good tips.
Yeah.
I know that you guys do several strategies. Are you thinking about doing like really, really big stuff? Maybe doing big developments?
I think so, yeah. There's actually a crane just outside my office at the minute. That's how fast Leeds is growing, mate. I don't know why this disappeared there, but yeah. So we want to. The question there was, what are we like? Are we looking at doing bigger strategies? So we've done a couple of commercial projects as well. The largest project we've successfully done is a 2.3 million GDV project. There's 6 flats in South West London. So that's gone pretty well, and we're going to be looking to do more of that. But at the minute, our focus is on property trading. Is you have to have a lot of skill set to do that. So we're teaching other people how to do that, how to market effectively, and then how to make those deals into things that fulfill your life goals. But we're doing bigger stuff, but at the minute just having fun doing what we're doing, trading deals.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have come to the end.
It's the last question, the standard question for everybody that we always ask.
Because we think this question is very interesting and fun, obviously. So what is your best book, TV series, and movie?
Do you mean one of each, or?
Yeah, one of each, and it doesn't need to be property related. Just give people who are you? What do you like to read and look at?
Yeah, it's certainly a tough one, actually. The top book is the Art of Getting Things Done. Let me actually get the title of it. So, Getting Things Done, I think it's called. There we go. Yeah. So, Getting Things Done: The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. I think that's an excellent book when it comes to just organising your life. But I like order, and in a world where there's a fast-growing business, it's really it's a constant battle between that order and the chaos. So you want to try and get everything in order as you can, and he helps with that. So there's Getting Things Done by David Allen. TV series, honestly, Friends. I don't watch TV. For a long time, I didn't even have to pay for a TV license because I didn't use it at all. But recently, I find that if I need something just to switch off with, that's what I use. A lot of people I hear use it to learn English as well. So it's good for that too, because people know the words. You've seen it so often, they know the words and stuff like that. Films, I don't particularly watch films so much. As in, I'm tempted to say Star Wars, but that's it's obviously a series more than a film. The fun fact is, I once won a bungee jump in a dancing contest in New Zealand. So I was in had to do a dance off, which isn't my forte at all. So I had to put the crowd up and stuff. I suppose I should have said something like I've done a TEDx talk, or something like that. But no, that's what came to my head. So.
Yeah. And what's your why?
I want to be successful, as in I want to be the expert in our niche, the world expert in our niche, and our niche being property investment, property trading. I enjoy having people coming to us saying, "Look, thank you, God, there's so much value." And in our latest cohort of the Elite Property Trading Academy, we've had thousands and thousands of comments of people. We get people to hashtag their wins, and there's hundreds of them. And there's only 100 people on the course, by the way. So it's so we seeing that progress and that growth is, I guess, what gets me out of bed. Plus that little thrill of adding to your net wealth on the spreadsheet.
That's a good one.
Yeah, really good one. Yeah.
So how should people do if they wanna
contact you?
Yeah, get in touch with you.
I wanted to produce something that was more value for you guys, because I appreciate people based in Sweden who listen to a podcast about investing in property, and particularly in the UK, obviously are wanting to do that. So for those that are interested in hands-free investing, particularly we'd ask if you're saying, look, I want to do this and I want to get moving with it. Then we've got a link for you. So it's that BIT, so it's a bit.ly link. You type this in bit.ly/aspire hands-free. And what I've asked my sales manager to do is just have a 20-minute consultation on Zoom or Skype, face-to-face, to try and understand your goals and see if that's something we can facilitate, and if it's not, point you in the right direction. So hopefully that will give from, a trusted source that has information across the whole of the UK, so be able to help you do that. Yeah.
And if they want to follow your journey, maybe on Instagram or something, or you don't want to, it's up to you, Dan.
I think the Instagram is Dan Buchan Property. So DAN and BUCHAN Buchan Property. I've got one of my names a bit like, I'm sure you've had this in the past, people just can't pronounce it, mate. So it's a Dan Buchan property. So the bit.ly link is bit.ly/aspire hands-free. Or catch me on Instagram.
Yeah, and we will put all of the information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And we really appreciate you being on our podcast and giving all of this valuable content that you've been giving.
Oh, fantastic. It's been great fun, an absolute pleasure. And great to catch up with you guys as well. I hope you and all your listeners push forward and have success in what they do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dan. You're a true inspiration for people wanting to be property investors.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah. Hopefully we can help as many people as possible. And
this has been Nana, Emily, and Dan, Pengar för podcasten. People, don't be stressed. Invest.
Hey.
Fair enough. It's nice. I like that. I've yet to get one.